So a quick overview, ladies and gentlemen. Feast your eyes on the Honor 200 Pro, a smartphone that's about as subtle as a sledgehammer to the face. This isn't just another run-of-the-mill mobile, it's a technological tour de force that'll make your current phone look like it belongs in a museum. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh great, another Chinese phone that'll probably spy on me. But hold your horses, because Honor's no longer under Huawei's umbrella, which means this beauty comes with all the Google goodies you could want. It's like having your cake and eating it too, except the cake is made of pixels and processing power. And let's talk about that design, shall we? It's sleeker than a greased otter, with a glass back that's more reflective than a narcissist's mirror. The camera module? It's not just a bump, it's a statement. It's saying, look at me, I'm important, and I can probably see your house from space. Our sheer specs. Now let's dive into the nitty-gritty, the numbers that'll make tech nerds weak at the knees. At the heart of this beast is the Snapdragon 8's Gen 3 chipset. It's not quite the top dog, but it's like having a V8 instead of a V12. You're still going to leave most of the competition in the dust. Memory? You've got more of it than a herd of elephants. We're talking 12 GB of RAM, which is enough to run a small country, let alone your Instagram feed. And storage? 512 GB. That's enough space to store every selfie you've ever taken, including the ones you thought you'd deleted. The battery is a 5200 mAh unit, which is bigger than some small cars I've driven, and it charges faster than a banker's credit card, with 100W wired charging and 66W wireless. You could probably use this thing to jumpstart a Boeing 747. For performance. In the world of smartphones, performance is king, and the Honor 200 Pro wears the crown with all the subtlety of a Vegas showgirl. This thing doesn't just run apps, it sprints through them like Usain Bolt with a rocket up his backside. Multitasking? It's smoother than a buttered eel. You could have more apps open than a teenager has browser tabs, and this phone wouldn't even break a sweat. It's like having a personal assistant with the brain of Stephen Hawking and the speed of the Flash. But it's not just about raw power. The Honor 200 Pro has more tricks up its sleeve than a magician at a children's party. The AI capabilities are so advanced, it'll probably be filing your taxes and writing your Tinder bio before you know it. It's not just smart, it's smarter than most of the people you went to school with. Gaming now. If you're a mobile gamer, listen up, because this is where things get really interesting. The Honor 200 Pro doesn't just play games, it devours them like a starving man at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Graphics? Smoother than a fresh jar of Skippy. Frame rates? Higher than a hippie at Woodstock. This phone could probably run Crysis, if anyone still cared about that benchmark. It's got more gaming prowess than a teenager with no social life and a Red Bull addiction. And let's not forget about the cooling system. It's got more pipes than a church organ, keeping things chillier than a penguin's bottom. You could probably fry an egg on most phones after an intense gaming session, but with the Honor 200 Pro, you'd be lucky to melt a snowflake. Display. The display. It's the window to your digital soul, and on the Honor 200 Pro, it's a window with a view that'll make your eyeballs weep with joy. We're talking about a 6.78-inch OLED panel that's more vibrant than a peacock in mating season. Colors? They pop like a fireworks display on New Year's Eve. Blacks? Darker than the inside of a coal mine at midnight. This screen doesn't just display images, it practically beams them directly into your cerebral cortex. And let's talk about that 120 Hz refresh rate. It's smoother than a con man sales pitch, making scrolling feel like you're gliding through the digital realm on a hoverboard made of pure silk. It's the kind of smoothness that'll make you want to scroll through your entire photo library just for the sheer joy of it. So our camera, right. Let's talk about the camera on this Honor 200 Pro. It's not just a camera, it's a bloody photographic arsenal. We're looking at a triple lens setup that would make a Hollywood cinematographer weep with joy. The main shooter is a 50 megapixel behemoth with optical image stabilization. It's like having a professional photographer stuffed into your pocket, minus the pretentious beret and overpriced coffee addiction. Now, Honor's been banging on about this phone being the portrait master, and I've got to say they might be onto something. The autofocus is quicker than a Cheeto on espresso, and the exposure is more reliable than a German train schedule. Even in those tricky backlit situations where most phones would throw a tantrum and produce a washed-out mess, this thing manages to keep its cool and deliver the goods. But it's not all sunshine and rainbows in camera land. Sometimes, the colors go a bit bonkers, like a toddler let loose with a crayon box. And in low light? Well, let's just say it's not exactly a night owl. There's more noise than a rock concert in those shadowy shots. But here's the kicker. When it gets it right, which is more often than not, the results are spectacular. It's like the phone equivalent of a moody artist, temperamental but brilliant when it's in the zone. Rush Daughter's battery now onto the juice box that keeps this technological marvel running. The Honor 200 Pro comes packing a 5200 mAh battery. That's not just big. It's the size of a small power station. You could probably jump-start a Boeing 747 with this thing. In real-world use, this translates to a phone that lasts longer than a politician's promise. We're talking about 2 days of use for the average Joe. Of course, if you're the type who spends every waking moment glued to your screen, frantically refreshing your social media feed like it's oxygen, you might need to reach for the charger by bedtime. But here's where it gets interesting. Honor's thrown in some fancy battery optimization wizardry. It's like having a tiny obsessive-compulsive accountant living inside your phone, meticulously managing every milliamp of power. However, and there's always a however, isn't there? Some users have reported that certain apps drain the battery faster than a black hole sucking in light. It's as if these apps have a personal vendetta against your battery life. First, here's charging. When it comes to charging, the Honor 200 Pro is quicker than a greased weasel on a water slide. We're talking 100W wired charging here, folks. That's not just fast, it's blink and you'll miss it fast. Honor claims you can get a 65% charge in just 30 minutes. That's faster than I can explain to my wife why I need another power tool. But wait, there's more. This phone also supports 66W wireless charging. That's right, you can slap this bad boy on a wireless pad and still get speeds that would make most wired chargers blush. It's like living in the future, but without the flying cars and robot butlers we were promised. Now, before you get too excited, remember that these fancy chargers aren't included in the box. It's like buying a sports car and finding out the engine is sold separately. But once you've got the right gear, charging this phone is less of a chore and more of a spectator sport. You'll find yourself staring at the charging percentage, cheering it on like it's the final lap of a Grand Prix. First to your sound. Let's talk about the audio capabilities of the Honor 200 Pro, shall we? This phone doesn't just play sound, it performs a full orchestral symphony in your palm. The stereo speakers are louder than a heavy metal concert in a library, and clearer than a politician's conscience on election day. The Honor 200 Pro supports Dolby Atmos, which is like having a tiny movie theater tucked away in your pocket. It creates a soundstage so wide, you'll be checking over your shoulder to make sure there isn't a full band playing behind you. Whether you're watching movies, playing games, or just annoying everyone on the bus with your music, the audio quality is impressive enough to make even the snobbiest audiophile nod in grudging approval. But it's not all perfect in audio land. Crank the volume up to 11, and things can get a bit messy. The bass starts to muddy faster than a pig in a rainstorm, and the highs can become sharper than a surgeon's scalpel. It's like the phone is screaming, "I can go louder, but I really don't want to." Still, for a device that's primarily designed for making calls and sending emojis, the sound quality is more than adequate. It's like expecting a fish to climb a tree and finding out it can actually make it halfway up. First, your price. Now let's address the elephant in the room, the price. The Honor 200 Pro isn't exactly cheap, but it's not sell-a-kidney expensive either. It's priced like a high-end mid-ranger or a low-end flagship, depending on how you look at it. It's the smartphone equivalent of flying premium economy. Not quite first class, but definitely a step up from cramped seats and mystery meat dinners. For your hard-earned cash, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck. A powerhouse processor, a camera that thinks it's a DSLR, a battery that could probably power a small village, and a screen brighter than most people's futures. It's like Honor took a list of flagship features, sprinkled in some mid-range pixie dust, and voila! The 200 Pro was born. But here's the rub. It's still a significant investment. You could buy a decent used car for the same price, or feed a small army of cats for a year. Is it worth it? Well, that depends on whether you value having the latest tech in your pocket more than, say, a down payment on a house. But if you're the type who needs a phone that can handle everything from high-stakes mobile gaming to impromptu photo shoots, the Honor 200 Pro might just be the Goldilocks option. Not too expensive, not too cheap, but just right. Saucier conclusion. So there you have it, the Honor 200 Pro. It's not just a phone, it's a technological tour de force crammed into a sleek, albeit slightly grandmother's jewelry box-inspired package. It's got more cameras than a paranoid billionaire's mansion, a battery life that could outlast a desert camel, and charging speeds that would make the Flash jealous. Is it perfect? Of course not. The camera can sometimes be as temperamental as a diva before a performance. The sound quality at max volume is about as pleasant as a cat's yowl at 3 a.m. And the price? Well, let's just say it's not for the faint of wallet. But here's the thing. For those who want a taste of flagship features without selling their firstborn, the Honor 200 Pro hits a sweet spot. It's like a Swiss Army knife of smartphones. Not the best at any one thing, but impressively competent at almost everything. So, if you're in the market for a phone that can keep up with your digital life, and maybe even overtake it occasionally, the Honor 200 Pro might just be the ticket. Just don't blame me when you find yourself talking to it more than your actual friends.